Hello and welcome to Sima Zhang's live stream for creating a fanfiction for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So, to get right into it, if you were there in yesterday's stream when I was playing a bit of the gameplay post the main storyline, I was talking through how I wanted to write a fanfiction right after the end of Act 1 when I stumbled across spoilers alert for this. So if you're watching this, I hope you've completed the game. If not, the best bet would be to play the game and then jump into future live streams. So I'll be doing this on a weekly basis. So to go back to my reason for creating this was at the end of Act 1, Gustave meets an untimely demise, and I don't think it fit the tone of the story quite well, especially because Loon helped him find a new purpose after the incident at the beach. He already had his close encounter with death, and it seems like there's a lot of potential that could have been had. And aside from that, after playing the rest of the game, I feel there's additional moments and things that leave a lot of room for fan fictions. I'm not sure if it's been done intentionally, so there's a lot of areas where I'll have creative freedom, and it seems like an interesting thing to do. So the way I'm going to divide this fan fiction is two parts. One is Gustave's journal, especially as Gustave's been writing in it. Maelle's been writing in it, and it's going to go to his apprentices in the future. So I've got an interesting spin on that. And then the second part would be what happens to the journal to change the story, which is going to be interesting. So I'm just in the process of creating the web novel fanfiction. So I'm not sure where the people post fanfictions, or I've come across this one website. I'm not too familiar with this platform. It doesn't look quite as clean as a web novel. So if you haven't come across this before, a closed web novel, it's a very clean looking place to read novels. I'm a fan of this series. And if it isn't obvious, I do read web novels, which is why I've come across this. I've been working on my own as a separate thing, which I've left for a while, but I want to get back into that. But that's more of a side note. Coming back to Clair Obscur. So Inkstone is the platform used to upload into web novel. So the first bit, so it's one storyline, but I'm just breaking it into two separate things because I think it makes more sense to do it this way. So the first book would be Gustave's journal, and the second book will be what happens to it. But naming wise, I think that's the best I can think of. Synopsis. So let me think of a good synopsis. Maelle wept. Or is that how you spell it? Wept. Wept. Oh, wept. That's the one I've come across. Wept. Okay. Tragically. I might change this in the future, but it's good to have somewhere to start. What is Gustave's dream? We're gonna have to think about that as well. Or let's just say legacy. Mm. Gustave intended, if that makes sense. What hands to the Should split screen this maybe. There we go. Okay, there's no one here I can ask. If I do that, can I do that? And then that doesn't let me go smaller, does it? Where's chat gone? Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, let's try this again. So I can do it this far. To the fragile hands Gustave intended. Category, character plot setting. All categories. Can't do that. Tags. Well, it's fantasy. I go separate tags. It's got adventure in it. It's got magic in it. It's got mystery in it. It's got superpowers in it. It's got tragedy in it. For Gustave. Guess it's going to be a short story. A novel. Might as well keep it novel, I don't know. There's no writing contest. Participating in general audiences. Let's see, player base. Okay, so the blood and gore, so I should probably do the same. No one's 17 and under admitted. So, I just put gore. No here. Based on the game. Clair Obscur. Expedition 33. We're doing 3 and well, ends of gore and death, etc. Create. Okay, the first chapter. So before I even go about writing it, there's a few elements I need to iron out as to what the plotline is, but we can work through that. The starting lines, I've already got some things to get us started with. So the title will be Read First. No. To New Beginnings. Now, if I just put New Beginnings, just paste that there. So we start with, so this is Gustave's apprentice writing into the journal. We start with, "Oh Gustave, you madman, you saved us and yet condemned us all," which refers to Maelle's ending. The second bit, there's a second line. So it's been, I won't state the reason it's been written this way, but let's imagine you're Gustave's journal and you're secretly altering Gustave's journal without anyone finding out. How do you do it? So you write secretly, you write discreetly, no one finds out what you're doing. Because of that, you don't have much time, so you have to think carefully about what you're writing. And it means it's going to be short sentences. It's an interesting constraint when I'm trying to write this. So, the fact Maelle hides a terrible secret is referring to, basically she's Alicia, part of the Descender family. Verso can't be trusted while he lets Gustave die. The paintress is not what she seems. There's a surprise in what that means. So, moving on to the next bit. We stare too long into the abyss. not only looked back, it tainted our hearts. This is basically about them finding out the truth of the canvas, and then, now that they're liberated, what that means for them. Let's just say society would be very disruptive if you found out there's an existence which can create and destroy at whim, and who would seemingly control where and what people do. So, in the way I see it, Miles, even though she's not showing it, the shell shock of Gustave's death has seeped into her. She might not show it outside, but it has a subtle or hidden effect on her. It's not subtle, it's hidden. And at the end, we see that everyone's back in a new city, Lumiere, which I kind of think what Miles done is created a new Lumiere, and she probably doesn't want anyone leaving New Lumiere. She wants everyone to stay there where they'll be safe, and she can look over them. Because someone like Loon would have wanted to explore the rest of the world, find out what secrets there are, yet she's in that theatre. She looks happy. You don't see a studious effect or her holding a journal. In fact, you don't see Gustave's journal at all at the end, which is interesting. And I don't think you see Gustave's apprentices at the end either, which is another interesting thing of note. So yeah, the next bit, it's basically putting it in plain words, right? It's not real. None of anything that's going on is real. The world is a canvas. The people are not perceived as real, so they don't think they're real. They don't think they're free, and so far they've just been toys to deal with the descendant family's grief. I think that's a good way to open it. What else can I put in? So basically, the objective today would be just to capture the raw emotion of an apprentice from the future changing Gustave's journal. So what else could he put in there? We mourned you, maybe? We mourned you. No, if I say we needed you, we mourned you. A life was mourned. A hero was needed. And what could I write? Needed. Life was mourned, so that's Gustave's death. A hero was needed. Save the world, and what else? I'm trying to make a rule of 3. Life was mourned, a hero was needed, and a lantern to shine the way forward. Another life mourned. Hero unborn. Hero unborn. Dwindling. Lantern. Born. Missing lantern to shine the way forward, because the lantern's in the world, right? That's where I'm drawing my inspiration from. Sorry, it's a double meaning there. Missing lantern to shine the way forward. Shine the way forward. What else can we write in Gustave's journal? You were right all along. Right, you were. Did I not have? Right, I need to write this in somehow. If I come here, that's chroma. What's the lumina converter? So it's basically like you were box needed reimagining. Reimagining scale. If I move this somehow down here, if I move that to the last line, move things around. There we go. O Gustave, you madman, you saved us and yet condemned us all. As life mourned, a hero unborn, a missing lantern to shine the way forward. It's not real, none of it is. Merely a canvas, just as we are not real, not free. Mere toys to deal with grief. We stared too long into the abyss. It not only looked back, it tainted our hearts. Right you were. The box needed reimagining. I'm inspired by Alan Wake here, was not a box. The lake, which was not a lake, it was an ocean, or something like that. But the box was not a box, it was a trap. A prison. It was a prison. Everything is preordained. Live through. Like puppets. String. Dancing. The tune. Tunes of all. Charles wins. What else would the, something to convince anyone reading this to live on despite the harshness of the world. Sinners, blood taints our lands. Mon Dieu, unborn. Canvas. What else can I write? So what else did? Fortune. Karma. It's not much, is it? It's very hard to write in this way, to think of short, snappy sentences. I don't think they flow. That can just be part of the law. They don't need to flow, they're just written in separate times and instances. For those who come after. There we go. it all serves a purpose. All of this subtext. Just thinking. Oh, thanks for the message. If you've played the game and have any thoughts about how the story could have been different, it'd be interesting to hear your input as well. So what I'm trying to do is write I'm not sure how much of this you've been in so far, but yeah, write a fanfiction based on Expedition 33, and one part of that is the journal of Gustave. So imagine, well, Maelle's been writing in the journal, Gustave's been writing in the journal. Yeah, I finished the game. I finished Act 3. I haven't done all of the post-game content yet, so I'm streaming into 2 bits. So yesterday I was doing gameplay, and today I'm doing the fanfiction bit. So I'm still looking at other bits of the game. I know there's the boss Simon, which I haven't done yet. I have done the... Yes, so I think that is part of what links into it, so the reason I'm doing this. So, how much of this do I want to spoil? So, I think Gustave's journal would be a turning point if we wanted to write a story where Gustave survives. It would be linked to Gustave's journal. I don't want to talk about how it's going to link in just yet. But yeah, and to make it important, it needs to be thematic and it needs to have something which would change the plot of the story. So yeah, I don't think many people pay attention to Gustave's journal, but it's noticeable in the game, where you see Gustave's been writing in the journal, he wants his apprentices to find it. And then after Gustave's untimely demise, Maelle's been writing in the journal, and you do get the achievement you get a ability that Maelle can use. I'm not sure what it's called, but it does lightning damage and does more damage on marked enemies. In the game, you do see Maelle give the journal... Yeah, Gustave's Maelle, that's the one. You do see Maelle give the journal to one of Gustave's apprentices, so one of the 3 boys that you see. However, he drops the journal and runs away. And then at the very end of the game, you don't see the journal again. You see Gustave, but you don't see the apprentices. So I want to link in... Imagine a dark ending. Well, I think it is already a dark ending, where Maelle doesn't seem to be the same Maelle as she started out as. And I believe the characters are subtly influenced. So if you think about how effectively all of Lumiere is Aline's creation, I believe the paintress has an effect on their creations. So for example, the gestrels I found in the manor, they're similar pots which look like the gestrels. So I think everything that's in the canvas is influenced by either the emotions, memories, or subconscious of the paintress. And this canvas is unique because it's got elements from multiple painters. So you've got Verso, you've got Clair, you've got Renoir, you've got, Aline? And you've got Maelle now as well. So the mix of all of those, I believe, would change the people that were repainted, so they're not the same as they originally were. And some things that do allude to that is the fade to grey at the end of Maelle's ending. The fact that, Verso didn't want to continue with his life, and effectively Maelle's forcing him to be alive at that point. And also, a lot of them still seem to be in Lumiere, so it almost seemed like Maelle's made a new Lumiere, and I guess it isn't too clear if she lets people leave Lumiere or not, because someone like Luna, who's always been asking questions in the game and has a very explorer personality, yeah, so she is still in Lumiere. She doesn't have a journal in her hand. She's not asking any questions. So it does seem a bit disconcerting at the end. So imagine at that point, we don't see Gustave's apprentices at the ending. So I'm imagining if Gustave's journal, if Gustave's apprentices have figured out there's something wrong with the world and Maelle, and one of them is now editing the journal. So this is where this fanfiction is starting out from. And going to your point, to manipulate their mind, I do see that happen. So Lune and Ciel were officially not too close to Verso, but after Maelle painted them, they become more close to Verso, and you see that in the final quest lines that they have, that they're sharing parts of their lives that they otherwise wouldn't have. So for example, Lune mentions about her parents and the expedition, and she's trusting Verso despite everything, all that's happened. She's choosing to trust Verso, and similarly, Ciel, she's also now trusting Verso. And another point is, well, this is a bit different, but Ciel's more interested now in Pierre, and it seems like, yeah, I think it's insinuated Verso and Luna got together, which is where the little boy that Luna's sitting next to comes in. What was I saying before? Yeah, so Ciel is now single-mindedly thinking about Pierre, And I think part of that comes with Maelle's influence, in that Maelle's now single-tracked. She wants revenge against Renoir, and then she wants to bring back Gustave. So I think part of that's influenced the other characters as well. So they're no longer the same people. There is some subtle influence on them. And effectively, Maelle herself has forgiven, well, I wouldn't say forgiven, but she's looking past Verso not saving Gustave. It's one of the dialogues that gets their relationships closer, in which he asks if Verso could have saved Gusto, and he says he could have, but he chose not to. And despite that, Maelle's sticking close to him. So it almost seemed like there's a personality shift where Maelle has changed as a person. She's no longer the happy-go-lucky girl that she was. She's no longer wanting freedom in that sense. She's now trying to constrain herself within the canvas. So it just seems like, I think it is a bit of a plot hole as to how everyone's personality changes so starkly in that sense. But I think it would make sense if there's some influence from the painters which changes who they are, even if they don't recognize it. And then the second bit about Maelle's ending, which is implied, is after Maelle leaves the painting, which will happen at some point, Renoir will destroy the world, so everyone's sitting on a timer. So at that point, you'd imagine a society of people who have been running expeditions for the last 67 years. They won't just sit still and just let whatever fate has in store for them happen. They must have an action plan that will allow them to change their fate. So I want to use the journal as a medium that will help them change their fate. And then the second bit of that would be, what was I say with this? Right, so effectively, in order to fight Maelle, a lot of people would need to be secretive or not be seen in Maelle's sight. And in Maelle's ending, you see there are not a lot of people at the event where Maelle's got Verso playing the piano. So I think that ties in that there's something brewing and people are planning something, but it's not clearly visible. So yeah, in line with that, so this will be, so I'm currently writing it in Inkstone, which feeds into Webnovel. It's a platform I've used myself to read web novels before. And the first chapter is titled New Beginnings. So this is one of Gustave's apprentices writing over it. So far I've got, "Oh Gustave, you madman, you saved us and yet condemned us all." So the way he saved them is because of the Lumina converter, which allowed Expedition 33 the advantage to do all that they've been able to do in the game, where they're able to use Pictos more passively, they have more abilities, they're more stronger with the spells they have, they can level up. And effectively you do see where Maelle's now using the chroma from the dead expeditioneers as something she got inspiration from Gustave from the Lumina converter, where he was using the dead Neverons as an energy source. The downside of AI is it's not exactly accurate in a sense. Sometimes it makes up information. And in something like a game where a lot of people have been playing it and it's very narrative heavy, a lot of people would notice the gaps. So I'm not using AI for this. But I have been playing the game and I have been doing my own research. But I'll come into that just after I'm done with this. So this is just the first chapter. So this is an apprentice of Gustave who's very secretly writing short snippets when he can, when he's not being seen doing this. So they're all effectively one-liners so far. What I am doing on the side is trying to put together the plot line. So if I do just that. So things I've noticed, that this is just one of the things I've noticed, is in this world, well, the name is Clair Obscur of the game, which means strong contrast between light and dark. So it's a painting technique where there's contrast used to highlight an overall composition. But if you look at the literal meaning, it means clear and obscure at the same time. So from that, and what I've seen in the game, so dual meaning things have more power in the universe. So for example, Ciel's twilight powers, so the duality of day and night, are very strong. So you have fire, which relates closely to the incident of Verso's death, which is seen, well, in science we view fire as one of the building blocks of humankind, right? So it's the duality of function and harm. So that's, well, it's only two things that I've got so far. And then concepts of art have more power in this universe. So you have the Siren, who's a very powerful boss that we face, who has the power of music. And you see also Loon, who has an interest in music. And this comes back to my point in that maybe it's Verso's love for music which has found its way into the canvas and it's subtly influencing the characters and makes them also like music. You see Monaco, who has this catchy theme, and he seems to be vibing to the music as well. Yeah, so I think the game does a very good job of displaying the grief throughout the game. And you do see, as in you mean, as in the dual meaning, as in how to them the world is fake, and they're using it to effectively get through their grief. In that sense, yeah, it does have quite a big impact on the story, grief as well. But I'm not including it too much in the fan fiction, as I think the game already covers a lot of that. But I want to go more into what's not included necessarily in the game, and effectively have a version where Gustave survives. And if I go into a bit of the story, so I was just doing this. So this is post finishing the game, so additional bits and pieces that we find out. So we know that Francois misses Claire. Verso and Esquier are a childhood pair. Similarly, Francois and Claire are a childhood pair. And then we find out that Sia was a farmer, and she changed careers. So she then went to volunteer at school, teaching kids how to sail and survive. Maybe it was wanting a change in pace of life. I think that kind of relates to the elements of grief, and everybody wants to find a different way or some different activity that they can do which draws them into the canvas. So I've been working on that on the side. So I do want to hash out. Yeah, it would be a plot twist, and they would definitely have to fight. I think that comes into the last thing that's going to be. I'm working on the top bits here on the first page. So I know normally. So the reason I'm doing this a bit differently is normally you have diaries which go in a chronological order. But if you were to, let's just say there's a way you get this to Gustave, and which is why it's addressed to Gustave, and he has a way of reading this. Well, the most impactful thing would be to have a lot of the main details on the first page, right? So, and there will be details up above, and then the last line will be Maelle hides a terrible secret, which is that she's Alicia. Then Verso can't be trusted. Well, he is, if you look at it in the lens of the Descendra family, he does have a very sad story in the fact that he's now trapped in this canvas and they're not letting him go. But that's no reason for him to want to destroy the canvas or let Gustave die. I did find it a bit odd that Maelle didn't push back harder when she did find out that Verso let Gustave die. She didn't show much emotion at all, which I think was a transition from Maelle to Alicia. So I see them as two distinct or separate characters. And then the third thing would be that the paintress is not what she seems, which is what we find out from our playthrough of the story. So where did I get to so far? So what I have so far is, well, he saved them by effectively being an anchor for Expedition 33 by creating the Lumina converter and through his optimism. You do see a lot of the characters do reference multiple times that Gustave would love to see something. So, for example, the inventions at the large tower when Maelle goes to the Alicia, Lune makes the comment that Gustave would have loved to see all these different inventions that the beings have been working on. But yeah, by dying, he's condemned them all because there's no longer an optimist left on the team. There's only realists and pessimists left on the team. So he's definitely mourned, but there's now a missing hero in the story, and this is where the game swiftly inserts the Verso, which is a bit jarring as well. And this is because there's a lot of, well, you notice this in the game, you see all these lanterns which tell you where you need to go, and some of the game guides to tell you if you want to explore the map, just go to opposite way where you see the flying lanterns. But yeah, you're just using, yeah, no worries, best of luck. And I'll be doing this on a weekly basis, so feel free to drop in, and it's also going to be on Webnovel as well. So how do I see? So if you just search maybe Gustave, will it show up? Maybe if I publish this. Let's do that. So it will be here. So on Webnovel, if you just search for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 or Gustave's Journal, you should be able to find it on Webnovel. And yeah, I'll be streaming until 4 today. So for another, so it's 1:30 now, 2:30, 3:30, so another 2.5 hours. So yeah, see you in a bit. In the meantime, okay, nice. Yeah, so yeah, I'll still be here for a while. And if you do miss me, because of work, you can always check it out on a Webnovel. And if you've got any suggestions, feel free to drop them in the next stream, and then I can tweak what I've got so far. So how do I edit this now? Here we go. No, not what I want to do. Workspace. Edit. No. There we go. Yep. Yeah, so I'll continue on with this and see in a bit in that case. So where was I? So we've got here, it's not real, none of it is merely canvas, just as we are not real, not free of mere toys to deal with grief. Stare too long into the abyss, it not only looked back, it tainted our hearts. Right you were, the box needed reimagining, but the box was not a box, it was a prison. That's some inspiration from Alan Wake 2 there. It's not, I was to say, it's not a river. It's a river, but it's not a river. It's an ocean, something like that. Everything is preordained, the play we live through. Well, this is a reference to how effectively it's a game, right? So it's breaking the fourth wall here. Puppets on a string, dancing to the tunes of a scarred child's whims. That's a reference to Maelle. Knowingly or unknowingly, she's become a tool for Clair in the way that things play out, which was part of Clair's plan. She wanted to get Renoir and the lean out of the painting, but she's become a pawn in that case. She does get Renoir out, which is what Clair wants. All our sinners, blood taints our lands, cowardice taints our souls. We do see in Lumiere, not everyone wants to embark on the expedition, they just see it as a death squad, effectively. Not everyone wants to join that death squad. But the fight lives on. When one falls, another must continue. When 10 fall, 100 more stand tall. When all but one man fall, an optimist is all that stands between salvation and damnation. It's referencing how with Gustave missing, there's no more optimist left in the team. Surviving is not living. Living is not surviving. So just because everybody survives in the end doesn't mean they're truly living to the best or to the degree that they should be. So it's a reference to maybe freedom, maybe that they've been twisted. Lumiere is a graveyard. Well, it's a graveyard waiting to happen. So every grave standing alone, so everyone seems to serve their own purpose in Lumiere. So we see that when Maelle's referencing that she didn't feel free in Lumiere, and she didn't fit in. There might be small cliques, but there's no overall single community. So every grave standing alone, oh necromancer, help us. So you effectively need someone to give the dead people a call back, or a purpose, to which they all can rally to, effectively like a necromancer raising an army. But no one else did, references the fact that there has been no one who's helped Lumiere stand as a single united front so far. So fortune or karma, our fate is not fixed. So there are people who want to fight their fate. So they need to defy the rules of the world, defy the canvas itself, and defy the fate of both worlds. So this is how the Descendro family is interfering. So there needs to be some kind of resolution to the Descendro family, which stops them from destroying the entire world. And there needs to be some resolution to the world itself, which is a good ending. So the next bit I'm thinking is how I can tie this to Gustave's phrase, for those who come after, for those who paved the path. So all the prior expeditions that have come thus far. And what else can I write? For those who paved the path. Those who come after, for those who paved the path. Remember. Will be remembered. To remember and to be remembered. To be remembered. So we've got the bit where we hope for Gustave to live. We've got the bit that's a canvas. We've got the bit where the apprentices believe at the end there's something that's tainted them. We need Gustave to be more imaginative. We want Gustave to fight fate. What else do we need? We need Gustave to, maybe if I will need to name them, won't I? Tragic. Unite a party. What do they call themselves? The disaster expedition, right? The disaster expedition. Ended in disaster. Ended in disaster. what Luna's do. Luna wants to research. Research. Knowledge is key. Art is power. Key art is power. Brighter future. Paint a brighter future. Faster. Let's just see. Disaster synonym. Catastrophe. Calamity. Catastrophe I could do. Real. Not real. No, real. Not living. Yet still living. Have souls. For freedom. $222 words. If I go back here, how much did I put in this one? Tell me the word limit. This is interesting. 11 minutes. Hitting time in words. 2400 words. Okay. Let's aim for 1000 then. 2400 is too much. It's another life. What else do I need to include? So if I go back here, let's just go here. So what do we want? Objectives. Tell the truth of the world. Ah, the beach. We need to remember. We need to make note of the beach here as well. How do we prevent the tragedy of the beach? Here we go. Walk not completely the past pathways. Visions have failed. The world is ever changing. The footsteps. Those who have failed. Hiding every corner. Every corner. Now we need to mention about verso. Watcher observes like a hawk, tracking disasters. Sail to distant shores. Shake the watcher. Break free. Prevent a tragedy. So what else can I say here? So what have I added? For those who come after, for those who paved the path to remember and to be remembered, tragic fates unite a party, the disaster expedition all but ended in catastrophe. Knowledge is key, art is power, and your journey must paint a brighter future. Walk not completely on past pathways, in the footsteps of those who have failed. The world is ever changing, calamity hiding at every corner. A watcher observes like a hawk, tracking disaster to those who sail to distant shores. Shake the watcher, prevent a tragedy. What else? So that's the disaster at the beach. That's enough cryptic messages. I would hope. So if I update that, how many words? 300. Another 700 words to go to hit the 1,000 word mark. Sail to distant shores, shake the watcher, prevent a tragedy. What else do I want to say? The world is not your enemy. Don't aggravate those who don't aggravate. That's on the quest line to not kill the white Neverons. Phrase. Blame not the innocent and naive for the strings pulled. Don't aggravate, blame not the innocent and naive for the strings fate pulled. That's a reference to not do that. What else do I need? So, we've got the truth of the world, we've got the beach, disaster, and then learn from history. Explore, take a plunge. Form your team, form your party. Take a plunge, form your party. And so effectively get them to leave earlier. From your party, and save the world sounds too cliche. Learn from history, take a plunge, form your party, and adventure on. It just works, I guess. Can't remove the not real, but still real bit. Here we go, I think it fits in more better here. $6.50 left. What else is there? Family is family. Pawns are pawns. Grief is grief. Yet war is a choice. War is a choice. Let me go back. A life worth more than all bargained for. In grief, a transition place. She transitioned into all we stood against. All we stood against. Don't let pawns stay as pawns. Reaching the end of the board. A transformation guarantees a chance. Pawn stays, pawns reaching the end of the board. Reach the end of the board. A transformation guarantees a chance. Pulled. 400, no, 600 to go. What else? So we've got maybe I need to work out the order. So we've got Gustave, that's the opening sentence, that will stay there. Another life mourned, a hero unborn, missing lantern shine the way forward. It's not real, none of it is, merely a canvas. Right, I can move that bit. Right, you were, the box needed reimagining, but the box was not a box, it was a prison. It's preordained play we live through. Puppets on a string. Don't think to this tune. Mascar child's whims, all are sinners, blood taints our lands. Cowardice taints our souls, but the fight lives on. When one falls, another must continue. When 10 fall, 100 more. Stand tall, when all but one man fall, an optimist is all that stands between salvation and damnation. Okay, so that bit leads into, well, that's about Gustave. Next bit we're talking about none of it's real. Okay, this bit, a life worth more than we all bargained for. Okay, that works. For the life mourned. Living is not surviving. Look at that. Not living yet still living. That order works better. Okay, this bit can move towards the end. Okay. So, not living yet still living, we have souls. Knowledge is key, art is power. Your journey must paint a brighter future. Venture on. Move that there. Venture on. Move that bit over here. Okay, so we've got the first bit. Just about your death. So basically don't die. The wall of canvas. We are free to paint a brighter future. Right, the next part. Tragic fate, unite party. But ended in catastrophe. remove the tragedy, the grief. The cycle must break. He must not succeed. That's referencing verso. Family is family, pawns are pawns, grief is grief, your war is a choice. Don't let pawns stay as pawns, reach the end of the board. Transformation guarantees a chance. Enemies are everywhere. Turn not friends away. The world is colourful. Embrace the colour. Every ally tips the scale favourably when the weight of giants. An army answers needed. Right. It's needed. It's 445 words. Not even halfway there. Okay, so what else would be the main message on page 1? What's happened so far in the story? So we started Lumiere, we set sail. There's the Gamache. I haven't mentioned Renoir yet, maybe. How do I mention about Renoir? Sundry. What's his name? Why is Gamora? Right. So I can say, why is Descendre? That's how you do it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pentagon. Spell. Pentagon circle. A shining star. Its edges are sharp. Edges are sharp. They cut deep and hard. Okay? Trying to get the main thing is difficult, right? So, what have we got so far? We need the costumes. Identity. Stand together. Stand as one. A uniform. Keep their hearts clean as their uniforms. The hearts as clean as their uniforms. hard. Right, so I've got about them sailing. Oh, hello. Good to see you back. I've just written a bit more. I've changed a bit of the order around. So I've got so far about Gustave, him being the missing hero. The box needs reimagining that they're in prison. Effectively, the canvas is their prison. They feel like the puppets. This is like a fourth wall break. Technically, when you control them, they are puppets on a string. They are dancing to the tunes of a scarred child's whims. So the scarred child is Alicia and Maelle, because even though it seemed like they're naive and uninformed, they are part of Claire's plan. And in the end, we do see she manages to get Renoir out of the painting. So effectively, all she's doing is manipulating Renoir to get out. But the way she's done it is questionable. But maybe that's what Claire wanted. So either she's being used, or that could be knowingly. She could have been knowingly used and just accepted that that's what it is. Or it could just be that she's unknowingly done everything. But even despite the fact that's even more scarier, because you don't know what she could do. So the fate of the world effectively is in her hands at the end. This bit is me effectively saying that everyone in Lumiere is effectively a sinner. Oh no, this is the apprentice from the future after the events of the story writing this journal. So this is from their perspective. They believe everything was preordained. And then I'll have a bit below about defying fate. So it's not that everything will be preordained. It's just that's how they felt. Because the way, if you look at the events of the story, Lumiere isn't exactly kept in the loop. They send an expedition out, but they aren't in contact or communication with the expedition that they send out. So historically, every expedition is a shot in the dark. They don't know what's going to happen. So it feels like they're birds trapped in a cage where one of them gets freed every year, but they never hear back from the bird that gets freed. And for everyone who was in Lumiere, they sent out Expedition 33, assuming it would be the same as every year when no one comes back. And then suddenly you have the party come back as heroes, having defeated the Paintress. And then suddenly Renoir comes in and wipes out everyone in... Oh no, sorry, everyone in... Renoir doesn't come. Everyone in Lumiere starts to fade away because the Paintress is no longer protecting them. So from their perspective, it was preordained. They didn't have a fighting chance. Like, nothing they could have done would have changed that at that point, unless they prevented Expedition 33 from going out in the first place. But that's not something they could have done because of the knowledge asymmetry. They don't know anything. So their whole purpose is built on defeating the Paintress. So that's what they'd always do, regardless of which expedition did it. And at the end, they'd all fade away. So from their perspective, they are stuck in a play. It doesn't matter which expedition gets through in the end. As long as an expedition succeeds, they've just done the plot of the world and erased themselves effectively. So it kind of seems like one of Renoir, such a Renoir thing to do, because again, when Maelle goes to visit Alicia, she says Renoir likes to paint meanings. So he's painted a creature that wants to reach the stars, but at the same time, he's also painted the Neverons who destroyed the structure that this creature creates. So it's trapped in this dream of reaching the stars, but it can never do so because the Neverons are constantly destroying its work. In the same way, he's given the expedition, he's given Lumiere hope. So he somehow planted this idea of going out to destroy the Paintress. But at the same time, if they do succeed in their goal, that's exactly what he wants them to do, to raise themselves. So in that way, they are puppets to Renoir's plan. And it is terrifying the power the Descendro family have. So that's what that point is. Moving on to the next one. Effectively, everyone in Lumiere, it's a bit harsh to call them all sinners, but effectively, because they only send out those who have 1 year left to live, they're not banking on the expedition saving them anymore. It's more of a ritual at this point. So effectively, they're treated as sacrifices to the Paintress. So as long as those sacrifices are sent out, everything will continue as normal. That's the mentality a lot of people in Lumiere would have. And maybe it's just the way they've been, well, circumstances have made them think that they don't care about what they could have if it puts at risk of what they already have at the moment. So yeah, so blood here that taints their land is all the dead expeditioners. So when you go out and play the game, you see so many dead bodies all over. You see, well, walls of bodies. You see a place where a bridge is formed, and you literally have to walk over it. And that's full of expeditioners who have piled upon each other to form a human bridge. And also, in the ancient battlefield, you see like heaps of corpses all around. So effectively, a lot of Lumiere is cowards. They don't want to go out and try to change anything. They're content with what they have. And you can see that from the festival. They've turned the Gommage, which is a bad thing, into a festival. And they celebrate it. But yeah, moving on from that, the fight lives on. So from the expeditioner's point of view, every time there's an expedition sent out, when they don't see any hope of reaching the Paintress, they begin to think, how can we help the next expedition reach the goal that we need to get to? So, and it's an iconic line of Expedition 33 as well, isn't it? When one falls, another must continue. And it's what Lune says to convince Gustave away from his suicidal tendencies. She says when, not if. And then he jokes about something, and then they move on, they have a bit of a laugh, and she cheers him up again. So yeah. Where did I read? Yeah. So, and then I've put when 10 fall. I've put 10 in because I think a squad, I don't know, it could be a number, but it made sense to stick with 10 because then you can have 100 more stunt all. It works much better than saying a random number like when 4 fall, 40 stunt all. It just works better in the flow of the sentence. But the point is, when you have a squad fail, you have so many in reserve in Lumiere waiting to embark on that same journey. And that Lumiere is basically the hope of future generations, right? But in this case, in Expedition 33, when all but one man fall, so when they're on the beach, Gustav thinks he's the only one left. He's the one, as an optimist, that stands between salvation and damnation. But in the end, they do kill him off in Act 1, so that point's a bit redundant. But I thought I'd add that in anyway, because it just sounds nice. And if Gustav is reading this, in the case that he finds himself in such a situation again, he realizes that he's the one who stands between salvation and damnation. So it's assuming he finds himself in the same situation. How can he get past that suicidal tendency that he had? So then we move on to the truth of the world. It's not real, none of it is, merely a canvas. So that's talking in a skeptical, what's it called, sarcastic tone, right? Where the apprentice is basically saying they don't treat us as real, they treat us merely as a canvas, just as they don't treat the canvas as real, and they don't treat us as real. That we're just mere toys for them to deal with their grief. And as residents of this world, they've stared too long into the abyss. They haven't done anything to change their fates, and by just looking at the void and accepting the world as it is, it didn't stay the same way. It tainted them. So maybe that's what held them back from, well, changing their fates in the first place, where they lived contently, and it was only in their last year that they were put out there. But living like that doesn't exactly create a strong squad, in a sense. Like, if something fails, they'll be the first to run away from danger. There are a few instances where we see journals of the past where there are a few brave people, but a lot of them would have been people who ran away in the face of adversity. Unless they didn't have a choice, in which case their last thought would have been, how do we effectively pave the way for future generations? But it's not their first choice, if that makes sense. And then, surviving isn't living. I think I've talked about this before. It's the ending to Maelle's ending. So just because they survived at the end, it's not the same as living. And Lumiere is basically a graveyard. It's just you're just waiting for everybody in Lumiere to die. And every person stands alone. So they effectively need someone like a necromancer who brings back dead into the world of the living and gives them hope and a purpose to stand for, because no one else has given them a purpose. So fortune or karma, whatever you call it, our fate is not fixed. So someone can change the fate of the world, someone who can defy the rules, defy the canvas, and defy the fate of two worlds, because they're intersecting in this canvas. So for those who come after, for those who paved the path, so future expeditions and previous expeditions, their purpose is to remember what the lessons of the previous expedition were, and the previous expedition's purpose is to be remembered in the future. So not living, yet still living. So this talks about how the Descendant family don't treat them as living creatures, yet they are still living creatures. And at some point, Monoko does ask Verso, as to his personality. Is it because that's who he is, or just that's because he's been painted that way? And as Verso, I think the option I made in the story, and I think the one that makes sense, is it is who Monoko is, and the paintings are real. So somehow, yes, so that is one of the goals. So someone needs to change the outcome, right? So without spoiling it, yeah, I will be writing about how someone will prevent the canvas from being destroyed. And part of that is having, well, let's talk about the changes in plot. So you have the journal, which is going back in time somehow. I'm not spoiling how as to yet, to Gustave. Gustave, having this journal in hand, will be able to change the outcome. He'll be able to prevent the catastrophe at the beach, which puts him in a suicidal move. He'll be able to prevent his death, which effectively starts the transition of Maelle back into Alicia. So before that, I think that is the defining moment, and the reason the story writers made that the end of Act 1 is that marks the end of Maelle being Maelle. In Act 2, we see the transition from Maelle to Alicia, and then in Act 3, it's basically just the end game, right? So yeah, so they do have to do something about the change of the fate of the world. So where did I reach? So we have souls. So everybody in this painting is alive. We have lives, and we yearn for freedom. So they do want freedom, and freedom means two things: freedom of existence. So without having the fear of a painter or paintress eliminating them on a whim, and freedom in knowing that they won't be destroyed anytime in the near future. So that marks that piece. And the next piece is learn from history, take a plunge, form your party, and adventure on. So Gustave's got to learn from the previous expeditions. He's got to take a risk here. He's got to form a party and start the adventure earlier. So he's got to effectively start before Expedition 33 happens. So he's got to do something to change the fate of the world. And the timeline of the game isn't enough to change events significantly. He needs to do something significant enough to change the fate of the entire world, right? So how is he going to do that? He needs to be able to leave and re-enter Lumiere at will. He needs to be able to have a party of people that will help him change the fate of the world. So, but at the same time, he shouldn't walk completely on past pathways. So we learn from the journals we see across the world that there's some reason or form that the method the previous expeditions have used haven't worked. So if you walk in the footsteps of those who have failed, there is a high likelihood you will fail yourself. And it's marking him to continue innovating, as that is one of the traits of Gustave and the people of Lumiere in general. They're always thinking of new ideas, so every expedition does something differently. So to that theory, I think even if no one is in the canvas, the canvas doesn't disappear, and they don't freeze. And I think a hint to that is when Monoko talks about Verso before, he mentions there's gaps in between. So he says that he always comes back. So that suggests before the accident, when Verso initially did the painting, he left, and at that point there wasn't anyone in the canvas from the Descender family. The world of the canvas kept on going, and there were some time differences, so they would be waiting for years. And then after a few years, Verso would come back into the painting again. And then they'd have that company to play again. So it wasn't continuous. So there are gaps in between when there's no one from the Descender family in the canvas looking at the conversations that Monoko has had with Verso. So it is self-hosting. And I think the part where they show the little boy painting the canvas, I don't think that's necessarily the driving machine behind the canvas. The sliver of soul they show that Verso has, I think that's something that makes this canvas unique. So it's different from other canvases in that way. And as part of the story I'm writing, it will serve a purpose as to why this canvas is different. So I want to write about the writers, the real world in general, and then this world as well. But yeah, before we get into that, it needs some frame or some framework to begin with, and to iron that out, this journal forms the perfect basis. So it's like the building block. So once I've got this journal in place, I can then write the rest of the story using this journal as a clutch for Gustave to then change the fate of both worlds. So that's that bit. And then the next bit is the world isn't your enemy. So this refers to Gustave being overly negative about the Nevrons. Even there are some Nevrons which are harmless, even against those ones. Gustave's the kind of person who battles them. Maybe there's some hidden anger, or as a trait in Gustave. But yeah, so this is referring to him not to aggravate those who don't aggravate. So he pulls that rose which aggravates the Nevron. Yeah, so if the canvas citizens do find out a way to prevent the painters from entering, they'll still be living. But the difficult piece is only Maelle is able to push out other painters. So she pushes out Aline, and then she pushes out, Renoir leaves of his own accord. So, no, she does push out Renoir, doesn't she? Yeah, he willingly lets her push her out of the canvas. And Aline she pushes out. And, no, Claire doesn't come into the canvas, does she? No, so I think that's it, yeah. So far the only person who's been able to push out the paintress is another paintress. So that's the difficult part. But yeah, if they were somehow able to prevent them from entering the canvas, they could effectively live on peacefully. But I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think there's a better way to go about this. But yeah, that would be something to think about. And the reason I say that is I still want to keep a link with the second world. So I still want to somehow link in the Descender family. So I don't want to completely cut them off and then isolate this world. And because this painting does form a purpose in the second world, and maybe it just isn't fully fleshed out how it's linked. But yeah, so this is a message for Gustave to not aggravate those who don't aggravate him. So for example, he plucks that rose, and that causes one of the Nevrons to attack him. And after the fight, I'm not sure if Maelle convinces him to not end the Nevron or not. I'll have to look into that. But the other Nevrons, there are many that are friendly throughout the game, so it's a message for him to not to aggravate those who don't initially attack him. So, and the second piece of that is to not blame the innocent and naive, so those who don't know, for the strings fate pulled. So even some of the Nevrons, they have killed expeditioners, like the one who plays the trombone. Yeah, the failed creations. Maybe they could help Gustave in changing the fate the world has in store. Because otherwise, because we see them in the story, but they don't really serve a purpose other than giving you what is it? You get some prize from the chief of the White Nevrons, but they don't really serve a purpose. I think that's got potential. These creations could have been used in some way to change the fate of the world. Even in the final battle, they could have used the White Nevrons to stand by the side, but they didn't really use them for anything. So in this world, knowledge is key. So this is one of the most important bits of this world. So this is why the journals form a really important part of this world. Okay, I haven't met Blanchet yet, so I've got to do that to see him and then see what he says to activate that dialogue. That's interesting. But considering he hasn't killed those Neverons, and it's his mission, right? He doesn't want you to kill those Neverons. So it seems like he's defied his own fate, so the purpose he was created for, he transcended that. So he's effectively actively defying the will of the painters, right? Which is interesting. And that could be an important part of the new story as to how to defy the painters or fight against the painters. Effectively, it is a war. The world is like ants, and then you've got these elephants. But ants can still fight elephants, right? So it's just a matter of numbers or finding out the right strategy. And at the end of the day, it is a JRPG. You do fight enemies that are stronger than you, and you whittle away at them. But yeah, so yeah, knowledge is key in this world. And then art is power. So anything linked to art, we see that it has some link to power. So with that knowledge, Gustave might be able to do something. And his journey needs to paint a brighter future, because both endings at the end of the game are grim, so they're not good endings. So he's got to do a journey that enables a better ending. So the message for him is to stand together, stand as one. They've got to commit to one strategy or one plan, and commit to it, and to keep their hearts as clean as their uniforms. So throughout the game, you see there's a lot of emphasis on the uniform. So when Verso receives the Expedition 33 uniform, he's seen as part of the team. I think Monoko wants a Expedition 33 uniform as well. CK also wants an Expedition 33 uniform, so they all want to feel as part of a single cause. So similarly as to how they want to get in the cause, they all need to have the same heart or same plan or same will to change the world. And then moving on to what hasn't worked for them. So what fate has in store for them is a tragic fate. So everyone in the party has tragic fates. So Gustave's missing an arm. Maelle doesn't know about her parents, and she sees herself as a misfit. Lune never connected with her parents, and she feels like she's just a tool for them to complete their legacy. CL blames herself for her child's death, and she mourns for Pierre. So that's the tragedy associated with her life. And then with Monoko in the story, you see him grieving for Noko, who he saw as once his mentor, but now he's the one looking after him. So everyone in the whole expedition has a tragic fate. But at the end of the expedition, it ends in catastrophe. So how do they change that? So one of the first things is somebody's watching them, right? So Verso's watching the expedition sail through. When they're sailing, it draws the attention of Renoir, and that's why he comes to the beach to attack the expedition, because he sees them as a threat. So if they manage to shake Verso on the way there, off their tail, they can prevent Renoir from attacking them at the beach and hence prevent the first tragedy that kickstarts the game, right? So Gustave's life was worth more than he perceived. So it's his death that creates the transition, and this is hinting to that, Maelle's transition. So she starts transitioning into the very thing that she stood against in the beginning of the game. So she doesn't like the city life. She wants to be free, but at the end of the game, she's the one who reforms the city, and in a sense, he restricts Verso's freedom. So she's become. So how's the saying go? In fighting the monster, you become the monster. So effectively, in the game, she transitions from one personality to another, to complete a different one. And the starting thing, or the thing that kickstarts that transformation, is Gustave's death. So if the tragedy is prevented, so the beach incident is prevented, there'll be more of Expedition 33 alive. If he removes the grief, so he prevents his own death, the cycle can be broken. The cycle being the cycle of grief, and the cycle of the painters dictating the fate of the world itself. and by the next sentence is he must not succeed. That's both Renoir and Verso. They both mustn't succeed with their plan to destroy the world. And the next bit is family, pawns are pawns. So from the way the Descendere family see it, we even see what's his name, Renoir say this. He prioritizes family over the entire world. So he sees everyone in the world as pawns, and his wife sees grief as grief. But yet they're willingly waging this war with one another and the world. So what Gustave needs to do is not let the pawns stay as pawns. So similar to a game of chess, he needs to, when one pawn reaches the end of the board, you can change it into another piece. So that's what this is referring to. If he reaches the end of the board, he can kickstart a transformation that guarantees a chance to change. I think in a sense he does, because what they're fighting with is the chroma, isn't it? And every living being in the canvas has chroma. So he creates Clair creates the Nevrons to help Renoir fight Aline. But we do see in the game, Renoir creates some Nevrons as well. And then he's effective. Well, he kills the expedition when they land on the beach. So you wouldn't do that if you didn't see them as pawns. So as long as they're sitting in Lumiere, they're effectively off the board. But the moment they come onto the continent, they've become chess pieces. So they either follow his will or he kills them off. So I do think, well, it's not just Renoir, even Aline, or basically any painter other than Verso and Maelle. So let's just say any mature painter, treat their creation. Yeah, it is the painted one, but the curator doesn't stop it from happening either. And we do see the curator at the end of the game trying to destroy the world as well. So the curator could have stopped. So even at the end of the game, you do see the curator face off against painted Renoir, but by not preventing his actions from the start, it just seems like he's implicitly letting him do whatever he wants. So he's not really. If he also sees the creations as pawns, as long as they don't touch the interests of his family, he doesn't care about what's happening with the rest of the world. But it's only when he sees Maelle as a risk, and the reason he's wanting to destroy the world is to free his wife from the grief as well. So he's willing to destroy the world, even as the curator, the real Renoir, and it's effectively represented in the painted Renoir as well. It's based on the same principle. Yeah, it is just a matter of time, based on how they've been weakening Aline, and she's been getting weaker as a paintress, which allows the expedition to defeat her. And part of this alludes to, if they were an earlier expedition, let's just pick a random number, of Expedition 60, even if they did find a way to get to the I think Expedition 60 is the muscled people, isn't it? If they did manage to get to the paintress as well, maybe they wouldn't have been able to defeat her because she would have been stronger than she was currently. It's just that she's currently in a weakened phase, which allows the expedition to defeat her. But yeah, it was a matter of time at this point. And in the real world pieces, we do see this is what Clair's helped Renoir do. She's tipped the scales in his favor. She's done this just to get Renoir out of the painting as early as she can, because initially she didn't believe Renoir would win, so that's why she's tipped the scales in his favor. And Maelle being added to the painting only helps Renoir. Effectively, when she's become part of the expedition, she's gone off. Well, another reason Expedition 33 succeed is because Maelle is part of their party and manages to help defeat the paintress as well. If there's a lot of moving pieces that, if you change any one variable, it might change the story. So if you remove Maelle from Expedition 33, Verso wouldn't have gone Verso wouldn't have travelled along the ship. He wouldn't have attracted Renoir. Painted Renoir. Painted Renoir wouldn't have killed everyone at the beach. But equally, they might not have had a chance to get to the paintress anyway, so they would have been just like any other expedition where they maybe paved the way forward, but they wouldn't have been able to do anything. And it's only when Verso tells them about the way that they can defeat I forget the name, the bigger Nevrons, that they're able to create a way to get through the barrier that surrounds the paintress. So without Verso being a party member, and without the curator, so again, if the curator didn't see the people of the canvas as a pawn, he wouldn't have allowed them to kill the paintress if he stood on the same side as the paintress. So by creating the tool that allowed them to get through to the paintress, he was complicit in assisting real Renoir. So it's like layers within layers, right? And it's kind of what Renoir does. Again, going back to that point where Maelle mentions how Renoir paints. She says he paints layers within layers. There's always a moral to the story. So even though it looks like in some elements the curator is fighting Renoir. Maybe it's just what he wants things to look like. So it's just how he's pushing the narrative. So yeah, 100%. Renoir would still win. It would just be without the expedition. It'd just do it himself. He'd be able to get enough chroma out of Aline that he'd be able to break free from the monolith and kick her out himself. Because effectively what Maelle does is what any other painter can do. So a painter can push out another painter from the canvas. And the curator helps Maelle discover this ability. But you'd assume Renoir has the same ability where he can push out any other painter in the canvas. So if he wanted to, he could push out Maelle from the canvas. But he chooses not to. In the end, where he allows her to remain in the canvas. But effectively, having Maelle in the team enabled the expedition. So, if in just the timeline, Expedition 33 to do it. Otherwise, it might have been during the time of Expedition 30 or 29 or some other point in the future where Renoir would win. It wouldn't have been as quick as it's happened. And another part of that is, if you think about the game, how many Nevrons have Expedition 33 killed, and all that chronos have been going to Renoir, and it helps him escape. So I think that's part of the story. It helps him escape because of all the actions of Expedition 33 from underneath the monolith. So yeah, it's the painter's choice to wage war with one another, and Gustave needs to effectively reach the monolith and do something, or change the way the paintress works. You can either help the paintress, you can either eliminate both painters, or so basically he needs to get to the monolith to be able to do anything, right? To change the fate of the world. And it's that transformation that will happen at the monolith that guarantees the world a chance to change their fate. So there are a lot of enemies in this world. There's the Nevrons, there's the painters, there's the painted Renoir, painted Verso, so effectively the Descender family, right? In general. So he shouldn't turn friends away, so he needs to actively befriend the Gestrals and any other species he can meet. So another thing is, well, there is some creative thing left in here. Maybe there's more to the map. Maybe there are other species, right, that we can add in as part of the story to make it a bit more colourful. And that's why I've said here, the world is colourful. He needs to embrace the colour. Every ally tips the scale favourably, so he needs to get as many allies as possible. And effectively, they're fighting against giants here, giants being the Descender family, so they need an army of ants. And then the next piece is naming the Descender family for Gustave to look into. This is a bit of a joke here. Why is Descendre? So if you've seen, I think it's Infinity War, or is it Endgame, where I was trying to find out what's his name. I was searching for this. It's why is Gamora? It's something. Yeah, that when they're having the standoff in Avengers. In here. I don't think Alicia could have entered the canvas without being reborn. So the thing about the Descendre family is you have Aline, which is the strongest paintress. She's also the head of the painter's headquarters. So she's definitely the strongest paintress. Then you have Renoir, who Aline has taught how to paint. Then you have the oldest child, which is Claire, who is super strong. Then you have Verso, who's also quite talented in painting. And then, well, the canvas was created by Verso and Claire jointly. However, Maelle has never painted before. She only learns how to paint in the game. We see that towards the end, where she's figured out she's a paintress and she has the abilities to paint. So she's never painted anything before, so it's the first time painting. And she doesn't paint outside the canvas, or in the real world, she paints from within the canvas. So painting within the painting. So because she doesn't have the ability to paint before, she's effectively swept along with Aline's. Well, so basically when Aline senses Maelle's entered the painting, she probably puts her in the one safe space left while she's been helping. Oh, right, I do remember. Oh, yeah, you're right. She has painted before, but I don't think she's painted an entire world. It just seems like what she's painted is maybe. Yeah, I remember that now. I said it. So she has painted before, but maybe she's not. So it's maybe because she's not as strong a paintress in that case. So she hasn't painted a canvas yet. She's only done paintings. So I think there's a difference between paintings and canvases. So I think in a canvas you have an entire world. We see that in the manner where there's like small paintings of people who belong in, or like some certain characters who belong in canvas, but they're just paintings. So I think there's a difference between paintings and canvases. So canvases imbue them with life. Maybe in the painting they don't have. They're just normal paintings. I don't think that there's enough. Well, it probably hasn't been fleshed out enough. It doesn't really show if every painting is a unique world of its own, or if there's a limit or a threshold you need, or what the ranking of painters are. It's not really fleshed out in that case. But even if Maelle wasn't reborn, and if you put her randomly somewhere in the world, she still has to choose between Verso and the rest, Renoir and Clair. So she has to choose between two sides, right? Renoir and Clair, or Aline and Verso. If she chooses Aline and Verso, you still end up with Expedition 33 coming to hunt the paintress. But maybe, in this case, to prevent them from attacking the paintress, Maelle would have killed them off, because she doesn't have the emotional attachment to those people. Well, it's not quite clear as to how she would see them, right? She might just see them as paintings, or it's not until she's lived life as Maelle that she appreciates who they are. I don't know. It's an interesting one. But yeah. I don't think I'd want to change the story that much. But I'm thinking more along the lines of, if the journal would document what's happened so far in the game, so it relates to more of a wider audience, so people who've played the game are able to see how the events play out. So the journal follows that, and then something changes when this journal goes to Gustave, and he changes things. So a lot of major plot lines would be the same. So Renoir and Lean would still be fighting. Claire would have still created the Neverons, and Alicia would still enter the canvas and reincarnate as, or be reborn as, Maelle. Another point of Maelle is, well, Alicia doesn't want to be in the real world, and it's kind of in the Maelle ending. She paints herself without the scars and the burns. So she wants to be part of the painting, and she wants to be part of a community deep down. So because no one in the Descendro family supports her as much, so she insinuates this when she's talking to painted Alicia, that they don't really value her. I think maybe she says that something like Claire was the prodigy or the star child, and Verso was the one who made jokes and had inside jokes with Renoir, but Maelle was the child that was left to her own devices, or wasn't really loved in that way. So maybe she's just looking for a connection. So she would have joined Lumiere, which is the only society of humans in the world anyway. But yeah, that would be another interesting take on doing it. But I think it's slightly different, because it still doesn't help them. Yeah, I think she just doesn't see that. So Verso does say, I think he does say it, that he's created these things out of love, that he's too shy to admit that he does love Alicia. But I don't think she really sees that way. And I think part of it comes down to, she still blames herself for what happened with Verso. And effectively at that point, no one stood with her or offered her much support. Everyone's been grieving on their own. So Claire's gone off to fight her own war. Aline's gone to sink in the painting to grieve on her own. Renoir's gone to get Aline out of the painting, but Maelle's been left to her own devices in that sense. So yeah, I do think she's still looking for some kind of connection, to someone she can talk to. And you see that when she says she sees Gustave as her brother and father. Yeah, it's a complicated one, right? So as Verso said, family is complicated. So although Aline probably blames Alicia for Verso's death, at the same time, she is her daughter. And part of her probably does recognize that she hasn't been there for her daughter. But at the same time, she's just stuck in her own cycle of grief and defiance against Renoir. So yeah, so to that point, yeah, if this journal got back to Gustave, he'd need to investigate the Descendro family, right? So there are some clues left in the journals of them. So yeah, so he'll need to look into what the Descendro family is. Then there's 5 members of the Descendro family. You've got Aline, you've got Verso, you've got Claire, you've got Renoir, and you have Alicia. So 5 forming a pentagon circle. So it's linked to magic, right? Or a shining star. And then the thing is, the edges of the star are sharp. They cut deep and hard. So it's kind of symbolizing that although the Descendro family has created this canvas, they're also the ones who are effectively changing and destroying it at the same time. But also, timeline-wise, just to consider What's his age? Gustave is 32. Maelle is what, 16? So that's a 10, 14, 16-year difference. I think that would change the story a bit too much if you had Alicia come in but still retain her sense of self. Maybe it would be better to define some levels for the paintresses. So let's say, I don't know if you read cultivation novels, but I tend to read a lot of cultivation novels. So you have your key level cultivator, you have your foundation establishment, your golden core, your nascent soul, and it goes on. That's a bit too Eastern. But I think in terms of the game, you've got different levels. So if we associate, let's say, Maelle is a level 1 painter. Let's say Clair is 10 times stronger. I'd have to look into the game scaling. It'd be interesting if there's a mention of how many canvases or how many paintings Clair's painted. But yeah, it would be interesting if we did a scale. And then the reason Maelle is reborn is she's too weak, so she's not able to fight against Aline's powers. However, to that point, I think it would be interesting if Gustave talked to Maelle, managed to convince her, managed to tell her the truth, get her outside the canvas. That'd be an interesting spin. But how would I write that out? How would you... Yeah. So, what about Aline's chroma? If I just put in... Okay, yeah. Can't fight back against Aline's chrome. So effectively you need to level up Maelle's chroma for her to be able to fight back and remember things. Okay, that's an interesting thing. So if I make a note here, let's just say one objective is Gustave. Well, there's a limited number of chroma. Boosts Maelle's chroma, helps her remember. Oh, maybe not leave the canvas. I've thought of something which will be really good. So, towards the end, Lune asks Maelle to paint a painting of the outside world. She calls it painting within a painting. It's of the real world. That would be an interesting plot twist. That's a very good idea. Thanks for that. It ties into that. So, there's that. So, what use was verso? How to hop verso? Maybe if I change this one line. If I move it here. Okay, that fits well. That's 3. The paintress, Aline, is not what she seems. Renoir seeks destruction and Clair. What is Clair doing? Clair simplified so well. So if we start with Maelle, must be helped to remember. Chroma is the key. Lumina is the Lumina helps to get powerful as well. It's the aid. The residue of expeditions past. Yeah, no, there is the chroma, and that's the lesser chroma is the residue of the expeditions past. I'm just mentioning that as well. Residue or expedition past. So those expeditioneers who died, there's some form of chroma stuck in their bodies, which leaves their bodies in the world, so they don't turn into petals or flowers. But knowing Gustave, he was able to find a way to turn the energy of all the corrupted chroma from the nevrons into something they can use. So he must be able to develop something that can be powered by the residue from expeditions. Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at it from a perspective, so something I was going to put in the story is that the painters, they use the chroma to form the shells of creatures, but they don't know where the souls come from. And it effectively makes sense for them. If they had control over souls, that would make them very powerful. And effectively, she could have revived Verso completely inside the canvas. But what we see isn't Verso; it's a shell of Verso. And Verso realizes he's not Verso, which is why he wants to. He mentions this to Monoko, that he's not his Verso, he's a different Verso. No, not Monoko, to Esquier, to which Esquier says something along the lines of, it doesn't really matter, he sees him still as a friend, and as a separate being. So I don't think the painters control souls, they just control the shells in which the souls can reside in. And I think for the writers it would be... Yeah, she did, I think, yeah, it is mentioned that she defeats... Is it? She mentions, and then, yeah, when they don't go back, she fights them. Is that Renoir or Clair? I'm not sure. But yeah, it would make sense if Alicia can see and track them, because she's created the shell, right? So she should still have some link to the shells she's created. Effectively, like, it's her painting, the people of, or the citizens, so she must be able to sense them within the painting. Because she's effectively trapped within the monolith, so there must be something. So she is fighting, what's her name, Renoir, somehow. So yeah, there must be a way she's able to see the rest of the world without actually exiting the monolith. So it makes sense she's able to see from the eyes and senses of the residents of Lumiere. The residue of expectant past can be harnessed. Then if I put a painting within a painting, the outside on the inside. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense as to why Renoir was looked questionably, because when she attacked him, he didn't die. Yeah, that makes sense. In that case, we could introduce a system of chroma. If I just put in here, grades to chroma. Chroma. Let's say, a good point is, when you're upgrading weapons, there's, let's just say, tier 1 chroma used to level up to level 3, is it? Level 9, I can't remember. I have to check. And then let's just say, I'll just put that for as a placeholder. To level up to level 13. I'll just put in placeholders for now. And then tier 3 chroma level up to 19, then tier 4 chroma to level up to 32. I'm not even sure if that's correct or not, but I'll have to check that. But yeah, it's a good point. Like if we added in a tier system for the chroma, then I haven't tracked it, but different monsters give you different amounts of chroma. That would be different monsters give different amounts of chroma. Maybe you can categorize how much chroma makes a category, makes a tier. That makes sense. Is the Aiden be harnessed? Okay, so we want to help Maelle remember. She can use chroma, she can use lumina, the residue of expeditions past. So she needs to paint a painting within a painting. She needs to paint the outside world on the inside. And what can she do with that one? Draw from the outside to the inside to the outside. Keep it cryptic. So she's got to be able to use the painting of the outside world in the canvas to somehow link to the outside world so she can improve her powers. That would be an interesting mechanic. So effectively in this version, Gustave is allying with Maelle. So Maelle's on Gustave's side. They're fighting. Okay, so what about Verso? Verso, he's the victim, he's a shadowy soul. Find his peace. No, free suffering. What can you do with Verso? Maybe merge the remnants. A faceless boy. Okay, so it is the painted boy, so he's the faceless boy. What's the mask monster called? Mask keeper. And painted Verso. There we go. So for so what we want to do, so this part's going to break down what he's going to do with the Cinder family. So Maelle, he's going to help, Gustave's going to help her remember, harness her powers, get her to grow stronger. Verso, free him from suffering. So merge his broken soul. So his soul is split between the faceless boy, the twisted mask keeper, who keeps talking about putting on masks, and the painted Verso himself. Maybe then he makes a different choice. The barrier between both worlds. A screen to view the other side. That's actually Yeah, we could use that. So, verso, by merging his broken soul and the elements split across the painting to different pieces of him. Maybe if I just don't say that, maybe if I say merge the broken soul, maybe you can decide what that means exactly afterwards when I'm doing actual writing. But effectively, the reason Verso wants to die is because he doesn't want, well, one, he sees the strife of the family, and two, he wants them to move on. However, at the end of Act 3, we do see he cares for Aline when he sees her fall over in sickness. That's the moment when he decides to destroy the world, right? So, if he could go to a space, a barrier between both worlds where he can view both sides, as long as he can see Aline from within that barrier, or effectively the Descender family from within that barrier, he might want to continue living within that space. So rather than forcing him to stay alive within New Lumiere, as per the Maelle ending, maybe a compromise could be letting him stay within the space between both worlds, effectively. Screen to view the other side. Perchance it holds some hope. A parent and a child separated by a sliver of screen. Maybe if the paintress can see, well, I keep saying the paintress, if Aline can see Verso in that space, it will effectively solve the drama between them. Well, she doesn't need to enter the painting. Maybe she can just talk to him from outside the painting. So that's the second piece done. So who did I mention? Maelle is covered, Verso is covered, Aline. I want to introduce a plot twist with Aline, to be honest. Aline. She knows what she is doing. No. She seems to be... We might have misunderstood her. Misunderstood what the paintress stood for. She holds the door open for us. Yet, beneath her veil, dark secret seems to be hidden. Secret bruise. Bears. It's not terrible. Terrifying. Secret. Cannot be trusted. Honest painting. Bruce. Norris. Hope the board meeting goes well. See you later. Bruce. And the last one is Renoir. And the last one? Renoir, second last one. that here. I don't know what it is. I think it's... that should be it. To get this outside. Maybe that doesn't fit. Such things think. Let me edit this. Right, so what have I got? So I've got the Descendro family. What else do I need? else do I need to write? I think that's about it for the first chapter. Maybe about Eskie and Noko. Maybe don't need to directly name them. Or maybe about the rest of the allies. Love weapons. Maybe I can still modify this in the future. First chapter. I think that's it. I'm going to call it a day here. I think that's enough words for now. If you can think of anything next week, you can add that in. Let me just type that in here. Eight o'clock, 4 hours away. Where can I read this? No, that's not what I want to read. That's my stuff. Create. Nope. Oh, I think that's what it was. Create. The contests. Here we go. Right, just do until here. Okay, I think you need the whole thing. Let me edit the synopsis.